Hello, my friends. You are listening to the Shine at Work podcast, formerly known as Getting Off the Hamster Wheel. I'm your host, Karen Weeks. I'm a transformational career coach who helps career-oriented humans get unstuck and find and be successful in careers that bring them joy, fulfillment, and success. I believe you should actually love what you do, even on the bad days, that you can find a career that lights you up, because spoiler alert, it impacts how bright you shine in your whole life. Every week, I talk to someone who felt stuck in their job and found a way to build a career that was right for them, because I know how that feels when your light is dim. I made a career change from theater to HR and now coaching, and at times in my life, I've had to look inside to see what was important, what made me shine bright, and make adjustments along the way. It's possible. I did it, my guests did it, and I help others do it. I hope you walk away from each episode not just inspired, but with some actionable advice. And I hope you find it so valuable that you subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, and tell your friends, because we all deserve to shine bright in our lives, specifically at work. Okay, let's jump into this week's episode. Hi everyone. Before we jump into today's episode, I actually wanted to share a special offer for all my podcast listeners. I have just a couple of one-on-one spots available, both for the rest of this year, 2021, but I'm also starting to open up spots for January of 2022 for one-on-one coaching to help you get unstuck, figure out what you want to change in your life, in your career, and get you on a trajectory that's going to be amazing for the new year. Whether this is your broader life or specifically your career, I can help you. We will spend time unearthing why you're feeling stuck today, things that you enjoy, things that you don't enjoy, and what that all means for the future. Both what kind of roles you could consider, what kind of companies, what kind of industries. Is it a complete 180? Is it a bridge role to get you to a new 180 career? Or is it just taking a step forward and just trying to figure out what would make you happier in your life that is tied directly to your career? So with all that, like I said, I've got a couple of spots left for 2021, but I'm also starting to book for 2022. So if you commit now, when you reach out to me, reference this podcast and I will give you a discount on my rates. I would love to work with you to help you figure out the best way to transform your life and shine your brightest in the new year. So let's connect. You can either email me at karen@karendweeks.com, connect with me through these platforms, or even on my website. And if you reference this podcast, I'll make sure you get the deal. All right, now on to today's episode. Hello, my friends. How's everything going for you this year? How's your fall? I hope you have found these most recent episodes really inspiring, but also I think I really want to kind of dive deep into the theme that I really saw. And look, little sneak behind the curtains, right? Like I group these episodes together for a reason, because for Paris and Keiko and Sun and Holly, what I think you actually probably noticed, or what I hope you noticed, is that yes, they all had very different careers. They all took left turns, right turns, up, down, totally changed industries, built on what they used to do. But when you look back and reflect over the time that they've been working, it actually continues to build on the previous role. So even if it felt like it was a complete 180 and they totally did something different, it actually, when you look back on it, it's very clear they were building a path forward. They just didn't realize it at the time. So that's what I'm going to focus this deeper dive conversation on, where we're going to go into each of the episodes and pick out one thing that they talked about and really kind of give some actionable advice on that particular item. But I wanted to call out the theme first of, even when you feel like you are all over the place, you are creating the building blocks, the stepping stones, weaving the fabric, whatever metaphor you want to use, because you're actually building your career the way it's meant to be. And you just don't see it yet. And that's okay. And that's the best part of having a career and having the flexibility to decide to try something new or to follow your heart or your passions or something that really inspires you to take that next step. That's what I really want to talk about this week, is picking out one of those pieces of advice from each of the people we talked to and going deeper. But like I said, I wanted to start with the idea of, there's a through line here. This is not as random as they may have thought. And we even talked about that in some of the episodes. So let's dive in. Okay, we're going to start with my friend Keiko. First of all, how freaking amazing is that woman, right? Like her energy just like pours through the conversation. She is so special, and I was so honored to have her on the show. But the thing that I took away most from her conversation is really about finding what's going to make you happy and following that, and not doing it because other people are telling you what to do, or you're not following other expectations or following some norm that you think you're supposed to have. And she always felt that deep inside, and she didn't know how to talk about it. She didn't know what to call it. She didn't know how to reflect on it, but she knew she was doing things for others instead of doing things for herself. So, my challenge to you coming out of Keiko's episode is, what is your inner voice telling you that you are not listening to? And by the way, I'm not saying this is like some drastic, I'm going to go move to Mexico and live on a beach. It could be something so simple as, every day I wake up and dread going to work. Or when I look back on my week, I was frustrated more than 50% of the time, and I'm not happy with that. I don't feel good with that. Or it could be, I really like this one part of my job. So instead of being a generalist, maybe I actually want to focus on that and be a specialist. Or in this remote world, do I really still need to live in the city that I'm currently living in if it's not required for my company? What is an internal monologue or an internal voice that you are ignoring right now? Identify it, call it out, give it a name, write it down. Don't worry about the judgment that comes with it. Don't worry about the misaligned expectations. Don't worry about what it's going to mean and what you're going to do with it. Let's just start by writing it down. What is the thing that you're ignoring that's inside your heart, inside your soul, inside your mind, whatever inside you think of? Write it down. What was it? Was it something that you actually didn't even know you were thinking about to this very moment when I asked you? Is it something that's been nagging at you for a while? And now let's talk about the action. What is one thing, very simple, very small thing, that you're going to do to address that voice? Even just saying out loud, I hear you and I acknowledge you. I'm going to figure this out, or I'm going to work on this, or I'm going to think about this. That could even just be your step. And I mean literally saying it out loud. You had the thought, you wrote it down on the piece of paper, and then either next to it on the piece of paper or say it out loud, I am acknowledging that I'm having this feeling. That could be your first step if that's all you feel comfortable doing. If that is your first step, I then challenge you to a second step, maybe in a couple of days, like let it sink in, it's okay. And then think about, okay, so what is this voice telling me? What is the first thing I need to do to address what I just wrote down? It could be talking to your partner or roommate or family member or whoever you have in your life that you need to make decisions with or helps you make decisions. It could be exploring what you wrote down. So maybe you say something like, I really like this one piece of my job and I don't like the other pieces. Maybe it's, something small like that, and you need to do some research on what that actually looks like. But what is that voice in your head or voice in your soul or whatever? Write it down, acknowledge it, and then pick one thing you're going to do to start addressing it. So in the next episode, we talked to Paris. And the thing that I love about Paris's story is that at so many moments in her career, she didn't purposefully say, oh, I'm going to go do this, right? She didn't wake up one day and say, hey, I am going to change everything that I do and become a recruiter to help Black tech talent not just find jobs, but then feel like they have found a company that welcomes them and celebrates them and includes them in their culture and in their business and in their teams. She was inspired by something. She felt moved by something and just started talking about it. And that turned into something. And look, I'm not saying that's going to happen every single time, right? I talk about a lot of stuff on social media and it doesn't take me anywhere, and that's okay. But I think the point of it is, find something that is inspiring to you and don't push it down. It may just turn into something you're talking about on social media. It may just be a volunteer thing you do on the side, or it could help you find a different calling that changes your career. So with that in mind, what is something that is important to you? What is something that's calling to you? What's something that you find that you read a lot about or care about? And then, is that something that you want to follow for a career? Or is that something you just want to do on the side? Or is that something you want to just make donations to? join a board, volunteer. Like I said, it doesn't have to be your full career, but you can still find it really fulfilling. In our recent Career Changers workshop that I did back in October with Tiffany, we actually talked about that with someone who joined the workshop, where she was trying to decide, look, the job I have is fine, but I don't really care about it. It's my 9 to 5 and that's all it's going to be for me. And so we were talking to her about, is that okay? Maybe that's all your job needs to be. And you're actually going to find something that's fulfilling outside of that through, like I said, volunteering, board positions, just becoming part of an organization, maybe even offering to help them out. Whatever you do as a quote unquote day job, is that a skill that a nonprofit could use? So, and maybe it's not literal volunteering, but just offering to like redo their website or something. I know a web designer who loved animals. And so they went and took pictures and then helped create a website for an adoption center. And they loved it because they got to hang out with cute little puppies and kittens and then take adorable pictures and create a website that helped them get adopted. So think about the thing that is pulling you, like that's speaking to you from outside of sort of the corporate world. Exactly what Paris went through. And is that something that you want to do something with? Is that something that could turn into something? And again, you don't have to apply for a job with that in the title. Just start talking about it, start thinking about it, start living it, and see what that turns into. And that's my challenge to you. Just see what it turns into. And I think the reason why I bring this up is sometimes people say, oh, but that's not a job. Oh, that's not a thing. Again, do you really think Paris thought this was going to be her next job? I'm thinking no. So just be aware of it. I think that's one of the other themes throughout everything that we talked about with our guests in this like block of episodes is not only were there building blocks along the way, but they kept their mind and their spirit open to things. And they just listened to things when they came through. So listen to what's going on in your heart right now. What is something that you care about that's outside of your job? And how do you want to incorporate that into your life? That's my challenge. How do you want to incorporate it into your life? And then see where it goes from there. In the next conversation we had, we talked to Holly. And I think the thing that was most interesting about Holly's advice was that there is a through line in your career. And while you may be following a non-linear career path and you may feel like you're going all over the place, she kept coming back to some themes in the roles that she was taking. So even when she thought she was going to go out on her own for a while, or even when she, made a move to a boutique versus a bigger organization, she continued to see those through lines even as she was winding through her career path. So when it comes to Holly's advice about finding things that really work for you and skills that you have that you can apply in different scenarios and in different jobs, that's my challenge to you. When you look back on your career, what is that through line? Even if you feel like you've been all over the place, what's that through line? When I was leaving theater, and I talk about this a lot, one thing that someone helped me realize was that when I worked with actors in the talent agency, I was helping them get jobs. I was helping them with their careers. And obviously I never thought about it that way when I was there because I was getting them casting auditions and helping them book, TV shows or whatever. And so I didn't think about it as careers, but that's what I was doing. And I loved it. I loved being able to call someone and say, oh my gosh, you got this thing that you were really excited about. Or, hey, I just submitted you for this thing. I know it's going to be a stretch, but I got this feeling. And then they got the audition. And yeah, sometimes there was negative news to share and they didn't get something and they'd make it all the way to screen testing, which is like the final round of an interview, and they wouldn't get it. And it was really disappointing, but it gave them great experience. They met great people through it. And sometimes when that person had their next project, they would call them. So my point through that story, and now that you know a little bit more behind the scenes in Hollywood, which I'm sure you were dying to know, is to say there are through lines in your career, even when you feel like you're taking left turns. So look back over the jobs you've had, look back on the projects you've worked on, look back on the different clubs or whatever you were in school, or the nonprofits that you volunteer for, or just the hobbies you have. This doesn't have to be limited to literally what you're being paid for. Throughout your life, what are some through lines that you care about? And is that something that you can lean into in your career? And even if you're not looking to make a career change this minute, just identifying what that might be can be really helpful for you as you think about new opportunities or when you're feeling stuck. You've already done some of that reflection work. So take a minute to write down what are some things that have been consistent and constant in your life, in your career, in your work, in your projects, in your interests, and just write it down. And for now, we can put that to the side if you need to. However, if you're starting to think about career change or thinking about making a transition in your career and transforming it into something else, use it. Say, what does this potentially mean? What are the themes that I'm seeing come through in the things that I just wrote down? What does that mean from an industry standpoint? What does that mean from the kind of company I want to work for? What does that mean from the kind of job I want to do? And again, don't worry about titles and job descriptions, just what kind of work do you want to do? I think sometimes people get so hung up on a job title, like, oh, this means I want to be an accountant. This means I want to be a product manager. Don't worry about that yet. Just notice that you love helping get to answers and problem solving or coming up with new ideas or organizing teams or managing projects. Like, just worry about that part first, and then we'll figure out what the heck it's called based on the industry you want to work in. So finally, we talked to my friend's son. It's funny, both Keiko and Son and I all went through this side hustle program with Lauren, who is one of our first guests this season. And we all took away something very different from that experience. That's what I love about programs like that and working with coaches, is that it's not about a defined, oh, this must be what I'm trying to do. It's actually about the journey. And yes, you go in with some goals, of course, but the journey is why it's important. And having a partner to figure out what this means for you and what you're learning along the way is so key. And the thing I love about Son and his humor and ability to kind of laugh at himself a little bit about being a job hopper was that when he looked back and realized how many times he changed jobs and why he changed jobs and why he thought about doing Lauren's side hustle program, it was really because he was trying to admit to himself he's not a 9 to 5 guy. He's not the guy that you're going to hire and be at a company for years. And that's okay. Going back to Keiko's episode, it's okay that you're not doing the conformative, is that the right word? I don't know. Like the thing you're supposed to do. Put you in a box, be in the box, do what you're supposed to do in the box, and live your life because that's what you're supposed to do. That's just not meant to be for some people, and that's okay. Some people love it. I have someone in my life who is, probably going to work for companies their whole life. They love it. They're going up their career ladder. Like that's just what they do, and they love that. Other people don't. And whatever is right for you is right for you. That's what I hope you take away from this podcast. If we work together, my workshops, any way that I interact with you, you need to find, and I want you to find, and you deserve to find what is right for you, not what other people think you're supposed to do or want you to do or tell you to do, not what you think you're supposed to do or grew up with certain beliefs feeling that you're supposed to do this. Yes, you need to pay your rent, of course. Yes, you need to have shelter and food, or you need to work with your partner to figure out what you want in your life, of course. But you also need to figure that out within a space that makes sense for you and inspires you and makes you feel happy and fulfilled and successful in whatever way that's defined for you. And I think that was something that Sun was trying to get across in his episode, is trying to figure out what that means for him. And for him, it means he's actually the guy that you hire to do some projects, or in his own companies to do some projects. And then he does the project and he moves on to the next thing, whether that was as an internal employee, through his own company, through his own projects, as a consultant, however he does it. That's what he is meant to do. Those I come in, I solve a problem, I finish the project, and I move on. So I think my challenge to you when you think back to Sun's episode is, what expectation are you living for others? Or what box are you trying to put yourself into that doesn't feel right for you? And this is kind of a little bit tied to what the exercise we did after Keiko's episode, but it's a little different. I want you to think about what expectations are you living for others versus what you're doing for yourself. When you think back to roles that you left, or jobs that you were unhappy with, or why you were attracted to a new job, what was the thing that was attracting to you? Or what was the thing that you were saying, I'm kind of over this, I want to move on to something else? Because that might be telling you something bigger about the kind of work you want to do or the way you want to build your career. It could be that you just like different challenges, or career development and promotions are really important to you. Again, I'm not saying you have to become an entrepreneur or like be a consultant or something. It should be what's right for you. But when you look back over your career and when you made job changes, what were the things that were driving those job changes? And what does that say about you and the kind of career that you want, or the kind of work that you want to do? That you want to do, not what you're expected to do, not what you think you're supposed to do, that you want to do. And see what that tells you. Okay, my friends. So that was all of the brilliant advice that I wanted to add to these amazing episodes that we just went through. So my overall challenge, hopefully each of those was really helpful, and you have lots of notes in your journals or in your phone or in a Google Doc or however the heck you take your notes. But my biggest challenge to you is just to figure out, what is your life telling you so far? When you reflect back on where you've come from, what you've done, where you have made changes, where you've learned something about yourself, what inspires you, what's inside of you that you're not listening to, what is that actually telling about you? And what is that telling you about where you want to go? So that is my overall challenge to you, is to listen to all those voices, do that reflection work, look back and identify what that says and where you can take it from here. Because I've said it time and time again, and I will say it until I'm blue in the face and for as long as I do this kind of work. If you are not living the life that you want to live, that impacts every piece of your life, whether that's your job, which is obviously what we talk about most here, and when you're not shining your brightest in your work, you're not shining your brightest at home or in relationships or just in your life at home. So you are not going to be fulfilled when you're in a career that's not right for you. And you deserve to find what's right for you at this moment. That may change, and that's okay. But what is right for you now? Because you deserve to shine in work and in life. And I hope that this podcast really continues to help you figure that out. And hopefully these sort of mini episodes that go deeper into some of the feedback and some of the advice and some of the journeys of the people that we've interviewed really helps you define that. It really helps you find a path to shine your brightest. Until next time, my friends, please let me know how I can help you in any way possible. And I hope that you find your path to shine your brightest. Thank you so much for listening to the Shine at Work podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review. Leaving a review just takes a few minutes and truly helps other people find the podcast. If you want to learn more about how I work with people to help them transform their careers and shine brightly in their lives, please visit KarenDWeeks.com and follow us on Instagram at KDWCoaching_careers, or join our Facebook group with the same name. And thank you, as always, to Astronaut Go Home for our music. Until next time, remember that you can and deserve to shine at work.